I don't know. It's really kind of like a bittersweet thing, like, with legalization of cannabis, because people are out here, like they supported the amendment, they voted for the amendment. I can't really fault them for that because a lot of them were lied to, and
Mm-hmm.
the big argument is like, oh, well, like people will have, safer access and yada yada yada, and yes and no. Like, I don't know, like, yes, but then I think about, I'm 40 now. I've been smoking since I was 13. That's like a really long time, minus, about a
Wow.
year when I was
13.
pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so, I've been smoking for a long time,
Okay.
and I never smoked moldy weed until I got into the cannabis industry.
Mm.
And I find it fascinating. And, I've had, you know, when this particular flower was going around, like, I had to fight tooth and nail with the dispensary that I was working at the time, which just voted to unionize. Shout out to them.
Mm.
Um,
Hey. We love unions.
Love to see it because, man.
We just had Joe here earlier, actually.
Oh, yeah, yeah?
Mm-hmm. She
Good.
said hello.
Oh, hello, Joe. Which way is this going now? Okay. Um, where was it? Oh, yeah. So, I was thinking about it and I was just like, I've never smoked moldy weed until I worked at the dispensary. And
Mm.
it was like, it was kind of wild. Like, we had medical over here, but I was working over in Illinois. And so, plus it was like during COVID and everything else. And I just remember, you know, waking up one day and just like not being able to breathe.
Wow.
I remember going to the doctor and being like, this is something we just need to talk about because we're coming up on legalization. Like, medical is already here.
Right.
And I'm telling you right now, like, I'm pretty sure I smoked moldy weed.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh
And I
no.
was so worried. Like, I was so nervous. I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my
So you
God,
did it like once or twice or like
I so I smoked it. It took me like a couple sessions to like kind of figure out. I'm like, this isn't just skunky. Like, this is straight up
ooh.
mildew.
Ooh.
And but yeah, so I tell the doctor that and like I'm terrified. I'm like, oh my God, oh yay.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh my God, the doctor's gonna be like, ooh, finger wag and what are you doing with your life? And
Right.
then he just looks at me, and I shit you not, he just like kind of blinks, and he's just like, "Well, that's why you do edibles." And I was like, "Oh, okay,
All
okay."
right, Doc.
Yeah, well, it was just like refreshing too to like hear a medical professional be like, "Yeah, well."
Okay, now's a good time to cover your bio, which I absolutely love. This is my favorite bio so far. Bitter, jaded, and burnt the fuck out cannabis worker. Parent, advocate, healer, semi retired activist, I'm tired, in parentheses, animal lover. Marian also has experience with canvassing, petitioning, and helping with various marijuana events such as Hempfest in Seattle, and etc. So we just want to welcome you here and put a little virtual applause in here or something like that.
Round of applause.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here. I've never like, well, I was on another podcast before, but this is probably like my second time, so I'm nervous. But it'll be all right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. What do you want to know? Like, where do we want to start? Like,
Can you get into the cannabis legal stuff that you do? Because I don't know what you do.
well, so
Or did do, excuse me.
I was just a bud tender. So I got my start like professionally in June of 2020 over in Illinois. Like 3 months into like lockdown, in our area.
And where you said professionally?
Yeah, so like on the legal side of things.
Ah.
Um, but I mean, I have like a history like way prior to that.
Mm-hmm.
But working in the cannabis industry, especially like during that time, nobody was working, a lot of people were getting that extra unemployment, and getting stimulated and everything was like, wild. And it was truly amazing to see like people you would never imagine like coming into the dispensary like and being either total pros. Like my favorite is when like you'd be like these little like wholesome old ladies, like super wholesome, little gold cross around their necks, like with names like Grace and like Lydia or something, I don't know,
We
like
love grandmas.
yeah, and like ordering gas.
Ah!
You try to talk to them about like, wait, are you sure? And it's
Yo.
man, and then like hearing all like the little renegade stories, like, you weren't even, a thought in your mama's eye, and I'm running around with bikers over in LA and just wild stories from the elderly. I love those people. And I love the ones that are brand new too. It was a wild time to be alive because, like I said, everybody was not working. And what else are you going to do? You're going to break the rules and go buy some weed because it's an essential business. And we all just suffered like a worldwide like trauma. We're going to go get lit.
Mm-hmm.
Like even people like, they're like, well, I haven't smoked in 20 years and I'm not going back to work anytime soon. So figured I'd come check it out.
That's what you was hearing?
Huh?
That's what you was hearing?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. All sorts of stories. And so, yeah, started as a bud tender there. It was recreational, so it was a hot mess. Everybody was going to buy their weed because Missouri was not open. Even though everybody had paid
medical.
way too much for their medical cards.
Me.
Way too much.
And couldn't use them.
No. Missouri really, really did a number with both of their programs, honestly. I don't understand. I do understand that, COVID certainly didn't help things, like I get that part. Like I would like to think that we all have some compassion for that part. That's kind of where it ends for me. Like this whole thing has never been like about patients, and it's been pretty clear. Like think about it, like they charged a lot of people a lot of money and had nothing for them. Nothing at all.
So what happened with that money that people paid for their cannabis certifications from their cannabis doctors who talked to them on the phone for 2 minutes?
I wish I knew. I mean, I'm guessing a lot of it went to vets.
Well, that's good, I guess.
I guess. Because, yeah, I honestly don't know because there was nothing to sell. It's the sales tax that goes towards vets. So, yeah, I don't really know. I'm going to, I don't know, probably just sound like a conspiracy theorist here. And that's fine. Someone can correct me. But I think it just kind of like went back into the pockets of like the local investors. And thus the monopoly was born.
Jump started, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really just disappointed with like how it worked out. Like, even when I, left Illinois and came over here once we first opened, the rules were like ever changing, like forever changing. Like first, like you couldn't advertise, at all, like not even like strain names. It was wild. So that really kind of like killed marketing
And they couldn't have sales too, I remember.
We could have sales, we just couldn't advertise them.
That doesn't make
Like you had
sense.
to like come in. Like if you wanted to know anything about anything, you had to come into the store. I don't even think we were allowed because like one place that I worked when all this was happening, we had a drive-through, and I can't remember if it was like under that rule or if it was like kind of like a CYA like business like corporate like don't talk about deals at the drive-through because it could be heard over the
Wow.
intercom, you know.
That's the drama. The drama.
Right, right. Like you can't have a menu out there like at a drive-through like you can say a traditional restaurant because or fast food joint because you know it's advertisement. A child could walk up and see it. But then, you know, during these times you have, you know, they're worried about like the advertising, but then at the same time like you could technically bring children into dispensaries. Like there was some weird loophole in the language where it was like, you know, you could bring in, you know, if they were like an interpreter or, you know, someone to
Mm-hmm.
like assist you, you know, like
Mm-hmm.
we would call it like emotional support. But some dispensaries like were just so like money hungry that like, you know, I had friends in the industry, they're like, dude, like we have toddlers running around our dispensary, like,
Oh.
and I'm paranoid that they're gonna whack their heads on the corners of our display
Yeah. I
counters.
mean, just simply, it's not the place for kids.
No.
Like, the weed's locked up, but, like, it's literally not a place for kids.
No, it's certainly not baby proofed. I know where I'm currently at, like
Ugh.
now, you know, the other night it was cold and it was parents, so, you know, we did admittedly let them like sit like in the lobby because I'm pretty sure they were either on foot or a bus. I'm not, or both, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But they had a couple little ones, and I'm just like, man, like, I get it,
Mm-hmm.
but like, read the
Yeah.
room.
Yeah.
Like, you can't bring your kids into a bar, nor should you. And it's not saying that the dispensary like wouldn't be a safe space. Like, there's nothing crazy going on in there, but you know, it's just not the place. So,
Yeah.
anyways, yeah. I'm rambling. Um,
No, you're fine.
so I was bud tending. I moved over here. I was bud tending here. Worked my way up to a lead, and you know, I saw a lot of things in Illinois that I did not want to see happen in Missouri.
Mm.
And a lot of it was just like deprioritizing, if that's even a word, unprioritizing, I don't
Deeper?
know.
No, yeah, that's great.
Uh, patience.
Wow.
By that, like, I mean, like, interaction wise, like, where I worked, you know, patients did have some quote unquote perks, but the perks kind of fell short when
Mm-hmm.
there was no one there for them. There was because no one had time. No one was allowed to. And like if you spent too long talking to a patient or answering questions, you were like reprimanded
Oh
because you weren't
no.
like putting people through fast enough.
Wow.
Get those KPIs up. Get those baskets up like
KPI?
oh, I don't even remember a key performance something. I don't know.
Indicator?
Some shit I didn't care about because that's not what I was there.
You're here to help people.
But anywho,
I feel like you you kind of were making some really interesting points about parenting and like bringing your kids in the dispensary, and I wanted to go there because you have parent in your bio. You've talked about parenting with me before. So I'm just curious because I think that so many people, yeah, you got some good gas. Actually, what did you bring?
oh, that's some berry pie.
Berry pie.
Yeah, everything I have right now, except for one cultivator that I can put some respect on, is
Mm-hmm.
all from the lovely legacy.
Ooh.
Um, I pretty much, you know, I don't sleep on the legacy market, y'all. Like, I know the shit is pretty and it comes in pretty little jars and, you know,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And that's not to say there aren't some great cultivators out there that are like doing it right.
Mm-hmm.
But man, you know, there's just something to be said about partaking in some medicine that was like allowed to be grown freely and with love versus like quotas and deadlines and, you know, problems and, you know,
products.
just, you know, mold and bugs and thrips and like all sorts of shit. Like, you know, stuff that's been sitting for who knows how long. Like, stuff that, you know, maybe tested at this potency at one time, but by the time you get it, it does not. Or by the time you get it, you don't even have to put it in the grinder. You just kind of look at it and it puffs to dust.
For real. For real, though.
Yeah.
And it be that expensive stuff, too.
And it's a damn shame. Where were we going? What was the question?
We were talking about parenting.
Oh, yeah. So, parenting.
And we.
Yeah, so... You know, I am a parent. My son is now 18, and he just got his card on the 10th.
Hey.
And our journey was, like, kind of different. You know, like, I'm a pretty liberal mom. You know, I have very few rules, and he knows them, and he follows them, and all is well. He's a really, really good kid. I'm really proud of him.
Aww.
But, you know... We were younger, like, we kind of grew up together. I was 22 when I had him, you know, doing the party thing, and I realized, you know, when I was doing, like, all the drinking, like, I wasn't smoking. I actually, so, okay. I came
But you
here,
started at 13.
Yeah, started at 13.
Okay.
And then, you know, party, being a party girl. I actually am good on this for a minute. Fell into some shit, like, fast forward, I was like 19 years old, and I was a meth addict.
Wow.
Yeah, so fun fact, like, everyone's like, oh, you know, weed's the gateway. No, not for me. Like, I snorted my first line of methamphetamines at 11 years old.
11?
11, yeah. And it was, like, literally by choice. Like, it was just by repeated exposure. Like, I had a friend who is also, like, clean. Like, good for her. So proud of her. But, you know, it was just kind of like, hey, there's this thing that I do sometimes. Do you want to?
Right.
You know, and
Casual
I'm playing with Barbies looking at methamphetamines, you know, and I'm like, well, what is it? You know, I'm like, we're talking and whatever. And, you know, I said no, and it was never any pressure. She, okay. That was it, like, done, you know, it was never pressure, so it was literally just repeated exposure, and finally, like, one night, I was just like, you know what, I want to know, like, what is this, and, you know, then, like, a couple years went by, you know, like, we kind of, like, stopped talking, and then my exposure to it stopped, and I didn't really give it a second thought, and then, you know, then around 13, I started smoking with a friend who, you know, had weed. Like, her mom was a stoner. My parents were not. My dad drank, but my mom was, like, you know, basically sober. Her addiction was Coca-Cola and cigarettes. So, yeah. So anyways, yeah, I got into, you know, started smoking and just fell in love. Just, you know, I had kind of like a gnarly upbringing, and so it's like, it just kind of like made everything go away. And then, you know, so for a long time it was like all about like getting loaded and like not being responsible with my cannabis usage, you know, and not thinking about it because we also just didn't really have the knowledge that we have now then. And so anyways, you know, just fast forward, just being, you know, a real degenerate and like up and down with like meth addiction, and then finally like I was living with someone who was my partner at the time but also the dope man.
Wow.
And
oh
shit got wild, and I had an older sister who lived here in St. Louis, and I'm all gacked out of my mind. I'm just like, yo, like, let me just tell you everything. Like, it was just like I felt like I was like at church, like giving confession.
Wow.
And she was like, move here. And I was like, I don't know anyone but her. And I'm like,
wow.
Bet. I'm like, okay.
Wow.
So I packed my shit, got on a Greyhound out of Portland, and made my way here.
When you did that? How old were you when you did that?
I was 19.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Dang.
Yeah. So, but, you know, my advocacy for cannabis started back home in that interim.
Mm.
Um, through a friend of mine. So basically, she was like a big sister to me.
Mm-hmm.
And she was the one who got me exposed to Hempfest.
Mm-hmm.
She kind of took me under her wing and made sure that, what I was smoking was safe, where I was getting it from was safe.
Mm-hmm.
She was like 11 years older than me. So I met her when I was 13, 14, and she was, I don't know, early 20s. I can't do math. And
Mm-hmm.
so, yeah, she basically, like, I basically forced myself on her as a friend. Like, I was like the annoying, like, you're so cool and whatever. And, because she was the coolest person I'd ever met.
Aw.
And so finally, like, she was friends. Okay, I'm getting way jumbled. Excuse me. She
Mm-hmm.
was friends with my little puppy dog lover's oldest sister, and that's how her and I had become friends. And so yeah, she eventually just kind of like gave in and like took me under her wing and became like the big sister like I wanted. Not that I didn't have good ones, but she was cool. So, anyways, she got me into cannabis the right way. I
Mm.
was able to really get like a good eye on like what it could do for people. I really understood, that yeah, it's great to get loaded and it's great to like, be an enthusiast and love your cannabis, but like there's so much more to it. And
Mm-hmm.
so with her, we got involved with like the normal chapter up
Mm-hmm.
there. And then we were involved in Hempfest. Hempfest started in 1991 up in Seattle, Washington. Started out really small, like 500 or so people showing up. It's down at Myrtle Edwards Park in Elliott Bay. And now it's like, because it's a whole weekend long, it's like it's usually in August, and it is like basically like over 100,000 people come through.
Mm.
I got to be there when Woody Harrelson was like our guest speaker back
Wow.
in what was that, 2000,
Mm.
2001, something like that. Um,
And how was that?
and he was just there, like advocating. Like that was shortly, I believe, after he had gotten arrested for possession and because he was growing cannabis to like help his father. And
Mm.
so it was a huge advocate event, and like that's what it started out at, as like an advocate event.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, yeah, there was like music and arts and entertainment, of course, because Seattle in the 90s,
Right.
um but like it was an advocate event, and I think that's kind of like where my drive comes from and where my disdain comes from with like the medical market that we have now.
Mm.
um that's, I grew up with that. Like I grew up with my elders, proving that like cannabis can do so much for you. Like people with
Mm-hmm.
CPTSD, people with,
Mm-hmm.
coming off of addictions, people who suffer from, physical ailments, rheumatoid arthritis, gut health, you name it. And so, I was a minor, so I couldn't like do much. Like there wasn't a whole lot, like, a lot of it was still like 18 and up and 21 and up. So
Mm-hmm.
basically it was like I got to kind of be like on the outside and like do more like boots to the ground stuff and like help and assist with petitioning, put out flyers, stickers, you name it. And, just talk to people about it. And I remember being younger, and like talking to like old heads about this, and and oh yeah, legalization, like, wouldn't it be so cool? A lot of the same stuff that people are saying now. A lot of the, wouldn't it be so cool to have like safe access and this and that and yada yada yada, and they'd be naysayers, and of course back then I'm like, oh, you're just being a square, or whatever. And now that we're kind of like in it, well, we are in it, I'm like, oh, the old heads are right. Like, they were right. Like, they capitalized our culture. And I mean, I guess it's like kind of nothing new. Like, anything that can be capitalized, like, will be. But it just kind of feels like another form of like cultural appropriation. Except for, another friend of mine, Ian, said that it's kind of not, because they don't even try to like get to know us.
Damn.
I mean, so yeah, so Hempfest is like, I'm so sorry that I'm all over the place.
You don't have to be sorry. Yeah. You're going pretty linearly, but we can also ask you questions.
Yeah, that might be a little bit easier.
Yeah. We were just letting you go because you were going. Mm-hmm. But basically, like, you were just telling us how you got active, and talking about Hempfest and stuff like that. So, yeah, just explaining your background and how you moved from, like, out there to being out here and being safe and getting access. Okay. But we were talking about I think my question was
parenting.
Was parenting. I love that, because I think you covered like so many things within that one question. Like, you went for long. That was good.
Let me take it all the way back. Parenting. Okay. Like I said, kid got his card, right? Mm-hmm. So my kid got his card. Mm-hmm. And that's how we got there. Okay, so grew up partying together. He's not partying. And so I moved to Florida with him. Him and I moved to Florida. We did kind of a weird sabbatical, like down to Florida. Mm-hmm. And my niece was babysitting him while I was trying to go to school to like better myself, because we had left like a domestic violence situation. Wow. Yeah, man, life's been wild. Mm-hmm. And so my niece kind of just like ruined it. Like, she had no chill. And so it got to the point where one day, like, I was coming home, my kid was like 7 or 8 years old, and he's just like, what's a pipe? What's weed? Like, and I was like, fuck. And I was like, so, basically, like, I had a real sit down with him, and we just kind of had, like, the reverse, like, D.A.R.E talk.
I'm weak.
Well, because, like, D.A.R.E, like, I believe it's changed now, actually, now that I recall. I ran into the D.A.R.E lady at Pet Supplies Plus, and she said that they have omitted cannabis from their program. And that was like last summer, because I was like, why are you here? I'm buying dog food. Anyways. So that's a bonus. So I guess yay for that. Progress. They still don't want to like fully get rid of the stigma, but they're going to have to, because like the youth like are here, like the elderly are here, everybody in between are here, because pretty much everybody has or knows someone who has or does like smoke weed. Yeah. At this point, like, and so yeah, we kind of had the talk, and unfortunately, like at the time, because of growing up in the stigma and the fear and oh my God, my kid's gonna get taken because he's gonna say something to somebody, like not even thinking about it. So I had to put the fear of God in that kid. I was like, they will take you. Do not tell anybody. Plus, we were in Florida. Ooh, it's so backwards down there. Yeah, and so, yeah. I was just like, don't you ever, 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 ever. Wow. And, so then it was like cool. And it's not like I was sitting there like taking like bong rips in front of my kid or anything, but like, like if I was like packing a cone, I didn't feel like I had to be like, oh my God, anymore, which was
Yeah.
kind of nice, and
Yeah.
he would be like, well, what's that? Well, it's medicine. Well, what do you do? Well, I smoke it. Well, why do you smoke it? And I'm like, because it's fast and effective.
Mm-hmm.
Like helps me like wake up, helps me get my day started, or helps me go to sleep. Like,
Right.
So he like essentially, from about 7 or 8 years old, first grade, like kind of, grew up with it. And as time progressed, it was just kind of like more and more openness about it. And then, once I got into the biz, like I was also attending simultaneously. I got started in the industry in June of 2020, and then in August of 2020 I was the very first class to go into SLU's cannabis science and operations
Oh,
program.
you did that.
Mm-hmm.
Hell yeah.
Graduated in August it's a year long, so August 2021. It was all online. I learned some stuff from it. I learned that I cannot do cannabis math to save my life. And man, like I learned that I have a black thumb in the cannabis realm. Like,
Ooh.
kudos to cultivators, because
You don't like to grow?
the thing is I can grow flowers, I can grow vegetables, I can grow literal grass.
Wow.
But like we had to do like a little like grow of Tiny Tim tomatoes. Like they're just dwarf tomatoes, like little cherry tomatoes. I guess they only grow about a foot tall or something. And that's like, I guess, really similar to like trying to grow cannabis. And so, I had a little closet all set up. Like I got like we had to buy like this whole little kit thing.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it was a whole thing.
That's cool.
Yeah, I mean, it was cool until my plant kept dying. Like,
oh no,
man. And then I finally got one to like really like get going well. And then it was like week 6, like add your nutrients or whatever. And I was like, okay, cool. And then I put it in at like, I don't know, it was like morning because I had like a routine going, of course. And by the time I got home, which was like an hour before, so, by the time it was time to check it, they were completely fried. Like, nothing was resurrecting them. And then I cried. And it's weird. I find myself like anthropomorphizing like these little plants, and I'm like, I am a murderer, and I'm just murdering all these little babies. But I can grow stuff outside all day, so maybe I'm meant to like grow somewhere like not Missouri outside. But inside, not so much. So kudos to those guys, because it's rough. Like, it's a fickle, it's very delicate. It's a lot of information, and just, yeah. I wish I could. So yeah, more exposure to him. And then he had like behavioral problems in school, which I won't get too much into, but there was one moment like, because like when we first talked about it, like, he would be like, he's younger. Well, is that something I can do? And I'm just like, well, listen, like, I would prefer if you waited till you were 25 so that the beautiful brain that I birthed could finish developing. But like when you're 18, like,
right?
No idea at this point that like I would ever end up living in a legal state, let alone, my kid like going with it. So yeah, basically what happened was that the moment that happened was a couple years later. He was having some issues in school, like behavioral issues, like, and I just remember he was crying, and he just like looks up at me, and he's just like, do you think if I smoked weed, or I think he said smoked weed, that would like help me in my situation, And I'm like, oh, honey, no. No. I'm like, you still got to do the work. Like, you still got to, like, not do, like, XYZ, Yeah. And I'm like, so, I just made him promise to wait until he was 18. And so it was hilarious. Like, It was his 18th birthday, and it was like 12:30 in the morning. And I just bust into his room all obnoxious. He's awake. He's a gamer, so he's fine.
Aww.
And I'm like, oh, happy birthday. And, he's very stoic. And so he just kind of like, he just turns around in his gamer chair and just stares at me deadpan. And he's just like, so can we like smoke weed? And I was like, what? And I was already lit. I was like, what? Like now? Like right now? Because like I'm good, but I would like I
No,
will.
I'm good.
And he's like, no, later. And so yeah, no, it was a great birthday for him. And
Aww.
right. And what's cool is like I am certainly not like a doctor by any stretch of the means, but I've studied this for a hot minute now, and I've studied like what it can do for people, and like the effects and everything. And basically I told him, listen, like if you're gonna go down this journey, I want you to be really mindful about it, and I want you to get your card. So yeah, he really enjoyed the volcano, but he's not really interested in an inhalation method. Like he's tried
edibles.
A head change, diamonds and sauce card, baby's first head change, and really enjoyed it at first. But again, he's just really not about the inhalation method. He's really more of an edibles kid, which is pretty cool that he at least already is like, yeah, no,
take care of your lungs.
Like, yeah, he's just like, this isn't for me. And and I mean, like, he's like sober, like he just
sorry, there's the light in back of you, and every once in a while it gets knocked out, so I'll turn it on. It doesn't mean anything has happened. You don't have to move.
That scared me.
That was kind of scary, yeah.
But yeah,
I just knew what it was, which is why I giggled.
He doesn't drink. He doesn't, smoke cigarettes. He doesn't. He's a good kid. And so we've been experimenting with edibles. And, I told him that I wanted him to be really mindful about his consumption and, like, report back. Like, give him dosages. Like, I'm like, okay, listen, I got you this. I need you to, like, cut that into 4s, 2, like, and then, like...
running experiments and stuff.
Yeah, because, I mean, until we get on a federal level where doctors can actually, like, freely, like, dive into this and, like, diagnose it, like, we're still guinea pigs. So, like, he's not doing a physical journal because why would he? He's like, no, I have games. But, he, like, reports back. Like, he really does. And I'm really fascinated with, like, his reports. He'll say, like, oh, I took this, like, 2 to, or, 1 to 1 to 1, and... it makes time fly really fast at work. My back doesn't hurt. I can just get in the zone, and like next thing I know, I'm off work. But this one isn't quite enough, so I took like another half, and that seemed to be okay. And so I really love the fact that he's like truly like being mindful and like figuring out what really works for him. I'm like, good job, kid.
Yeah. And do you think like first off, I think that's beautiful, but I think there's a lot of, like, talk about how to talk about weed with their kids. Like, people don't know because it's like, there's so many good reasons to have it and consume it in whatever way, shape, or form. So then it's like, how do you embrace this and then still tell a child who it may not be good for because they're still developing, but it's something that's medicine. So I think it's just fascinating for people to be able to hear, like, here's some ways of doing it. Like, because you were so honest and open with him, he didn't have to, like, hide it behind your back or, like, go and smoke a bunch and then get into trouble and get in a position he didn't want to be in. Because he knew where he could get it, how he could get it safely. And at the end of the day, he just trusted you. So I don't know. I think that's fascinating. And growing up, like, my dad smoked weed. Like, and I wasn't very tight with my dad after so long, but when I first, like, when I was younger, it was just like, he would call it broccoli. So I'd be like, oh, like that, like that's you with your broccoli. He'd be like, yeah. And like, he wasn't necessarily a pleasant person. In fact, he was not pleasant. But anytime he smoked broccoli, he was fine. Like, it was like, that was never the problem. Like, you grow up and you see things in your household and people get just so worried about what weed is and how it impacts people. It's like, if you are using it in a way that is calming and relaxing and peaceful and not violent, I guarantee you that like people, including children, will pick up on that, and it won't be something that they can even associate as like such like a violent thing, when in fact it just don't, it's, we just so chill. Like, we just so chill. Like, we don't gotta do all this now.
And I mean, and that's not to say that, like, you know, violence doesn't happen in those homes, but, you know, like myself, you know, like I said, my dad drank, and I would have way rather preferred for him to just smoke. Like, that would have been way cooler.
For real.
So,
yeah, no,
you know, and like, honestly, like, we kind of low-key had that talk too, you know, because we would kind of like revisit over, you know, as he matured, or I think it goes to you. And so, you know, as it got age appropriate, like, you know, I just kind of got a little bit more and more, I guess, transparent. Like, there's levels, there's age appropriate levels of transparency. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so finally it just kind of got to be like, dude, like, it's like a particularly like, day, you know, and man, oh, you know, like, why? Nah. You know, just feeling kind of naggy, you know, how, like, kids kind of do. It's like, they have every right to, like, be curious, ask questions, but sometimes it just feels so invasive. And you're just for like, real. What is with the interrogation? You know, and so finally, you know, after a particularly, I guess, rough day, I don't even remember, but I remember just straight up being like, listen, I need to be able to sit here and smoke this in absolute peace so that I can continue to do everything else. So you just need to understand that, like, you know, this is how I relax, and this is what's going to make dinner happen. And I need you to just take this book and go be real cool for about 30 minutes. And I promise, like, we are going to hang out. And, you know, they get it. Yeah, after a while, yeah, it took a little bit, but I was like, okay. Thank you for understanding. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, as time progressed, then it got to the point where he was just, like, making fun of me and my friend. You know, if I had people over for coughing and choking, and I'd hear him in his room talking shit to his little gamer friends, being like, I'm weak! Yeah, you know, and then he would come out and be like, why do you do that?
Like you can help it. I'm weak.
Right. No, he doesn't. He doesn't appreciate the cough. He doesn't really seem to, like, be big on anything other than edibles, so yeah. But yeah, good times, like, growing up. It's kind of weird, like, this whole evolution. I'm like, these kids are spoiled. They're never gonna know what it's like to have to, like, you know, deal with the struggle of, like, waiting for the dope man. Shut up. Unless it's like after 10 p.m. or whatever. And then, you know, a lot of these places right now, like, there's a dispensary down in Peevely that's open until like midnight. Wow. Like on Friday and Saturday.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I don't know if the store itself is open, but they have a drive-through, and I think the drive-through might be what's open. Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go.
I know. You have some good folks that work there.
But I definitely think we can get to our rapid fire questions and then close out. We're cool with it. All right. So first off, do you have a favorite strain?
Ooh, man. Okay. You know, I'm a big fan of salads. So.
Salads?
Yeah, so like
Salad.
I like to take like different stuff and like mix it together. Like I can't breed and grow, so I might as well as like pluck and grind, man, and
Oh
like
my
work it out.
goodness. You're over here mixing some culinary blends.
I mean, sometimes it feels like it. Like I feel like a little weed witch. I'm just like like making little herbal concoctions, and I'm like, this is gonna be
Not the
wonderful.
we just
Oh yes, yes.
Mm-mm.
And so blueberry muffin is one of my favorites. I am a sucker for a good like sweet, like doughy flour. And honestly, like as a kid, that was my very first like big girl, like sticky icky kind bud is what we called it back then.
Mm.
And it was amazing. Like we were like, oh my God, and
Mm-hmm.
we stuck it to a to the wall and pulled it off, and like little pieces had still stuck to the wall.
Hell
And that
yeah.
was like,
Hell yeah.
God, mid to late 90s,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Ooh.
And so that was my first true and blue. Haha. And it's just steady one of my favorites. I have some right now that I'm just like kind of hanging on to because it's the last for who knows how long. I'm like, hmm. And so that one, and then I really love a good Miracle Alien cookies.
Mm-hmm.
And then anything like lemony or hazy or both.
Okay.
Like, yeah, I like a lot of different things. It's really hard to pinpoint one.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I like lemon.
How about your routine? How and when do you like partake?
Well, it depends. So, like, even when I wasn't working the two jobs, I can't, the older I got or I'm getting, I realized that it's hard to like fully medicate in the mornings. And as I started medicating more responsibly, I got, more onto CBD, and I use CBD every day to help with my anxiety a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so I start now with just a 60 milligram CBD tincture under my tongue every morning.
Okay.
It's like right on my nightstand because waking up is hard. So I'm like, well, I can just sit here and do this.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like I feel productive already and responsible. So it just kind of sets the vibe.
Okay.
So I do the sublingual and just kind of lay there, 90 seconds, and then, get up and start the rest of my day. And then, I have like my sauce cart that, I kind of have like an emergency. And so then I really don't medicate like until I get home, and then it's just like, I try not to like do a gradual wind down. So like I'll pack like a graham cone, and then like depending on the day, I'll either like smoke it right then and there and then move on with my night, or I'll like sip it, and then it's just kind of like there. And then after everything's done, then I tend to start hitting the dabs a little bit, and then I have these good night gummies that I love. I absolutely love them. And a good night pen as well. Like, I swear by this. And yeah, I'll hit that, and then I'll go crawl into bed. It's kind of mundane. Like, I don't really do a whole lot other than work now, so. Yeah.
It's a vibe. Okay. And then when you get the munchies, what snack are you reaching for?
Honestly, like probably like some pretzel chips, like everything pretzel chips and hummus, or like sometimes I'll get some Nutter Butters.
Ooh.
I love those things.
Ooh.
And like some milk, like oat milk.
Mm.
Or just a straight up PB&J, like a half sandwich.
These are good ones. We're big snacky people. All right. And then, what do you watch or listen to when you're elevated?
So, it depends. Like, on like what I'm doing, like if there's a task or if I'm just trying to chill or study or whatever. So if I'm like medicating and like caffeinated, like getting ready to like attack my house or something, like
Mm-hmm.
I'll throw on like, Pandora, because I've been cultivating this list for like a decade now. So I'll throw on either like a Tribe Called Quest or like Wu-Tang Radio
Mm-hmm.
and just like get to it. If I'm trying to like just mellow out, like I'll throw on Hiatus Coyote Radio.
Ooh.
And then like
Mm-hmm.
if I'm just trying to like study and like not focus, just I need background noise, then just there's a like Critical Role, which is like the D&D group. Like they got a podcast and all that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And they have these videos and that of lo-fi that they made. So it's like Critical Role low vibes or something like that. So I'll throw one of those on, or just some sort of like lo-fi music.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Good taste. I like your range.
Yeah.
Okay, and then getting to our last question, could you just plug us to your website, socials, events, just any opportunity to connect with you?
Well, you can find me the first Monday of every month at our local Minorities for Medical Marijuana
Woohoo!
meetups, hosted by Brendan England, the state director for Minorities for Medical Marijuana.
Woohoo!
You can hit them up at M4MM Missouri, I believe. If not, hit them up at St. Louis Cannabis Club, and they will have links to all of their socials on there. You can also find me mostly every last Friday of the month at Fried Fridays, also at the Cola Lounge, hosted by Rooted Buds.
Love them.
Other than that, my Instagram is Midwest_medicine_mama. Not fully active on there, but you can definitely hit me up on there if you have any questions about like consumption or like dosing or like any sort of advice or questions you may have. Yeah, Facebook, you can just find me on there. Marian, last name Coon. And yeah, that's about it. I'm a busy lady.
Hey, I see. Busy, busy. And fried too now.